bringing back those emails to her house, 4 of which at least were classified.
Correct.
To Anthony Weiner, who clearly has some trust issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, he was no longer in Congress when he had access to some of this information, clearly didn't have a security clearance, and this is going to raise questions about why Hillary Clinton was let off the hook. But again, it's also going to raise questions about why James Comey decided to insert himself late in the election season and suggest that Hillary Clinton still had an email problem in October on the eve of the election, and then a few days later said, well, no, never mind, she's been vindicated, the emails are not a problem. We're looking at them tonight, Brian, and as you say, several of them had classified information. So it's going to raise a lot of questions.
Ed, great job as usual. Have a great New Year. See you soon.
Happy New Year.
All right, as Ed reported, the State Department has just released, and I'm talking about just a couple hours ago, emails found on the laptop shared by Uma Abedin and her estranged husband, Anthony Weiner. Now, yesterday on CNN, Don Lemon, who has a show there, was visibly annoyed that the Abedin-Clinton email scandal just won't end.
When you clearly have top secret information on a laptop that you have on a server in the basement of your house, and then you send those top secret classified documents to people that aren't even cleared to see them, and then you forward them to your husband, who, by the way, is in jail.
There have been a million hearings on it.
Time.
It's water under the bridge, but
no, under the bridge for you.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
When in doubt, toss to a break. You'll learn that in Anchor School 101. Tom Fitton is the reason why Don Lemon lost his mind. He's the president of Judicial Watch, and he sued the State Department in order to obtain the emails. And he's the reason 2,800 emails are into the public right now. Tom, I know this is always a long process. Congratulations on getting it. How many have you read? What have you found?
Well, I've read about 140 of the emails. The State Department servers went down, and you know, it's a big team effort at Judicial Watch. It's extraordinary that we have to get our lawyers to sue in court, our investigators to look at the documents. After 2 years, we finally get the records. Now, the FBI found these records last year. As Ed Henry pointed out, we're only getting them 16 months later. And they show there was classified information on Weiner's laptop, in the least, at least 4 or 5 emails of that. There could be others there, but we're having to dig through the records to find that out. You know, and the concern is you're not supposed to take classified information off of classified systems, and you're certainly not supposed to take them out of the office, and you're certainly not supposed to store them on unsecure systems like your husband's laptop. And of course, Weiner was involved in all sorts of things that make his laptop especially a risky place to store this type of information. And you have to wonder why it is the FBI and the Justice Department let Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin off the hook after, 'cause you can bet the FBI knew there was classified information late last year when Comey cleared Hillary Clinton yet again. Why it is they let her off the hook. Now remember that FBI special agent who was sending these pro-Hillary and anti-Trump texts last year? Well, he's the top counter-intel guy, or at least one of them at the FBI, and would have been involved in this decision-making as well. So it's all coming together. We now know that Comey, other top officials at the FBI, Loretta Lynch meeting with Bill Clinton, they obviously were protecting Hillary Clinton and targeting President Trump. And one of the ways they were protecting Hillary Clinton was refusing to enforce the laws against the mishandling classified information. They left this classified info on the internet equivalent of a public park bench.
So if you want to know how somebody might be as president, you might say, what was the last job they had, and how did they handle it? How do they handle it? Using a private server. How do they handle it? Not being truthful about it. How do they handle it? Putting classified information on that, denying that it did, and then having it turn up. And then getting angry when it's discovered in October before an election that she sent her chief of staff sent classified material back to her house. This is a country secret. At least 4 cases. You found 4 classified emails already. You're only through a couple of hundred. You got to get through almost 3,000. So it's her actions that prompted law enforcement to have to act. So you might love Comey, hate Comey. He did not want to have to do this. Her actions forced him to find this and then make a decision, correct?
Yes, I do. And I think, Don Lemon's going to be really angry when I say the following. We need the Justice Department to criminally investigate what went on here, this time in an honest, forthright way, as opposed to the sham investigation that went on during the Obama administration that was protecting Hillary Clinton, their preferred candidate for the presidency. Jeff Sessions, or I don't know if he's recused himself from this as well, but the Justice Department, if this has not caused the Justice Department to do a serious, independent, and criminal investigation, then we're throwing all the laws against the mishandling of classified information. You might as well throw all those laws out.
Right.
Because you can do anything you want, and if you're powerful enough to get away with it, that can't be the standard. And President Trump, he's the president. He was elected to make sure this sort of stuff was stopped. And I would suggest he asked his Attorney General or someone in the Justice Department to at least investigate what went on here.
Right. And by the way, people say, why does President Trump keep talking about Hillary Clinton? There's an argument could be made there. But if you flip it around, Hillary Clinton never stops talking about this election and what happened leading up to it, blaming everybody except her own actions, including Comey, and wanting this investigation when clearly she has some problems that have to be looked into. Hey, you guys are relentless. Tom Fitton, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Joel Payne has a different view. He's a Democratic strategist and former director of African-American advertising for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. So, are you curious at all about what's on now, what's in those emails?
This is just a nothing burger, Brian. I can't believe you guys have spent $30 million, you guys being Judicial Watch and all these other conservative activists that have been going after Hillary Clinton for years. $30 million chasing a ghost on Hillary Clinton, chasing something that doesn't exist. Now you've drug her former aide into this. You've drug her family. You've put out misleading information about her family, about cousins and whatnot.
Go ahead. Tell me what's misleading,
I really don't quite understand.
Joel, I could understand how you don't want to bring it up, and I respect that. But could you tell me what's misleading about her cousin going to jail, about erroneous emails, about a jury finding him guilty? What's misleading about the anti-American newspaper that she used to co-edit?
Let's go through and name what every one of your cousins, aunts and uncles and whatnot have done over the last couple of years. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous argument, and that's the type of equivalency that makes people disbelieve the information that comes from this network.
What's erroneous about it?
Well, what's erroneous is it having any link to Huma Abedin. It has no link to her whatsoever. It's her cousin. I've got cousins who do things that I don't agree with either. Does that mean that I'm responsible for their actions? The bottom line is here, you're trying to distract from this president what he's doing in terms of distracting from the Russian investigation. This is a very smart ruse, by the way, by conservative activists and Fox News Network to try to, treat this as top news story for the first 15 minutes of your show. It's not. You're trying to confuse the American people. You're trying to confuse your viewers.
Joel,
this is a non-story. It's been litigated.
I respect that you don't like our rundown, and I'm sure I won't like a rundown if you put together. I might not like the order in which you do it. Believe it or not, we are covering some of the Russia investigation. If you would tune in, I will provide a copy for your home use a little bit later. Coming up in the C block. I'll show you. Okay? It's a C block. It's about 20 minutes after. But just focusing on this, the #1 story in America last year in late October, the #1 reason that Hillary Clinton gives that she lost was the fact that this emails were found on her chief of staff's husband, who's in jail for a reason, we'll go into that at a different time, was found on a laptop at home. So State Department things, at least 6 of which were classified material. This is a job interview, a year-long job interview. She's favored to win in almost every poll, in almost every battleground state. And then we see the way she acts in the slipshod way in which she's handling classified information. The #1 reason why she claims she lost. And now for the first time, those emails are exposed. So this would even help you, Joel, go through it and say, look, I went through 2,800 pages. There's nothing here. Or you go through it and say, wow, there is a lot here. So it is newsworthy in almost anyone's newsroom. I don't know what is not newsworthy about this. What Hillary Clinton claims is the single greatest reason why she lost.
Yes, it's not newsworthy for you to be chasing a private citizen who had another private citizen working for her for something that's been litigated by the FBI. By the way, your last guest doesn't think the FBI, I think he wants the FBI to be disassembled. I think that's what he said. I think he said that the FBI, Tom Fitton said that the FBI
he's disappointed like a lot of people. in some of the actions of the deputy director.
We think the FBI is a tool of the Democratic Party. Brian, is that your opinion on this? The FBI is infiltrated by Clinton Democrats? Give me a break.
Joel, I think for one thing, I think you point out, you give me a chance to separate. The rank and file of the FBI, I've had a chance to spend a great deal of time with. And there's about 35,000 in the country. To think that there's anything...
You met all 35,000
No, I said there's about 35. Well, thank you. And if I did meet them, I would share their names with you. But most of those I've met, there's about 35,000 in the country. I'd say 99% are doing things on a regular basis that are extraordinary. Not for fame, not for fortune, not for a pat on the back. I get it. Not for their pensions, because they believe in this country. However, if you're trying to find out how an investigation is progressing, what is behind it, why certain people are being investigated and why others, you have to find out who's doing the investigating. And upon further review, we're finding some disturbing things that are being unmasked. So I think that is newsworthy.
Jim Comey and Bob Mueller, who were George W. Bush's FBI team, yes, they were coordinating with the Clinton campaign to defeat Donald Trump. That sounds like a really reasonable, believable
Let me ask you, do you like what James Comey did with Hillary Clinton's emails?
Of course not. I disagree with it, but I didn't think he called for being fired.
So do you think it's not right?
I disagreed with him. I reacted like a normal person.
If I disagree with something Andy McCabe did, if I disagree with something Peter Strzok did, if I disagree with something that Bruce Orr working with Justice did, am I being critical of an entire bureau? Am I being critical of the entire Justice Department? Or am I saying, I don't like these actions? They seem to have a political motivation. And if I want to find out where an investigation's going, I have to find out who's doing it. To me, those are logical questions, Joel, that you would be asking too.
Well, all due respect, Brian, I'm more concerned with our commander-in-chief and how he feels about this. He spent the last week before Christmas, going into Christmas holiday, tearing apart the career of Andy McCabe, who, by the way, has spent the last 20 years fighting terrorists, doing things that your network purports to care about. So, yeah, that's what your president believes in. So I'm more worried about what he thinks and not what you think. 7.5
hours behind closed doors. So disturbing was it, the guy's rushing to retirement. That's newsworthy. Thanks, Joel, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, straight ahead. Senator Lindsey Graham is becoming one of the president's allies in the Senate. He'll be here next to weigh in on the Trump dossier and so much more from Clemson, South Carolina, where I believe they have a very good football team. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina was one of President Trump's biggest critics, and now he might be the Trump whisperer. In fact, he voted for Evan McMullen, we understand, when all was said and done. But at the end of 2017, he's become an unexpected ally and confidant to President Trump by almost all accounts. So what does Senator Graham think about the Trump administration's first year, Robert Mueller's ongoing probe, and the prospects for 2018, and why January might be as big as December for Congress? Senator, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
That's a pretty good lead-in. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's been just fascinating to see the way you guys went at it, and now you have this very honest, upfront, mutual relationship and respect for each other, in my humble opinion. And Senator, why do you believe that something will get done with immigration? What could you tell the people right now that might give them a sense of optimism heading into the new year?
Well, I think the president outlined what the deal will look like. About 80% of the American people want these DREAM Act kids to have a good life. They don't want to kick them out of the country because they got no place else to go. They've been here since they're pretty small kids. 80% of the people would like to see the border secured with a wall component. You need a wall on the border, not the entire border. Border security with a wall makes sense. Most Americans would like to get away from chain migration. So there's a deal to be had. And the only reason we won't get a deal is because people are so stubborn they can't get to yes. I think we'll get to yes.
Well, I tell you what, I read Senator Schumer's Twitter feed, and he says, listen, DACA is with the budget. And we're going to pass the budget with DACA, nothing to do with border security. And we're not going to link it to the wall. So therefore, government doesn't get funded. You think that's not reality? There's something going on behind the scenes that makes you feel as though we're past that rhetoric. What is it?
Yeah, I'm deeply involved with working with Democrats. I'm one of the authors of the DREAM Act with Senator Durbin. I think most Americans believe that not only should these kids have a second chance on life here, that we do need to secure our border. So this idea that we're only going to do the DREAM Act and nothing else is just all political theater. We have to do more than the DREAM Act, and we will.
but you want to address chain migration, you want to address the lottery system, you want to get the border security done, and you want to get the dream thing done. So do you believe they're all going to be linked? Because Mitch McConnell says if you guys work it out, and you're working in a bipartisan way right now behind the scenes, and you put it to him, he's going to put it to a vote. And what's significant is he's going to say, I'll pass it even if majority of Republicans don't go for it. That's what he means when he says, I'll put it to a vote, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty hard to go back home and say that you voted against a secure border with a wall component. The president's not saying a 2,200-mile wall, but there are places we need a wall, and he's going to get his wall and border security because that's what he ran on. Democrats have been working with Republicans like myself for a decade now, try to find a way to fix the DREAM Act, their problem. That needs to be done.
Right.
Most people don't like chain migration. The lottery system is just the dumbest way in the world to give out visas. So everything comes together to get this package.
All right, and you believe January?
I hope so, sooner rather than later. Here's what I'd like to be able to do. I'd like the president to address the nation in the State of the Union and say, I've increased defense spending because it had to be increased. Our military suffered too long, and I fixed it. We got a border secured with a wall where it makes sense. The DREAM Act kids have a better life, and we're moving away from a stupid lottery system to a merit-based immigration system. I'd like for the president to be able to say that in January, and I think that's possible.
Only if Dick Durbin says the same thing, to be honest, even if you might not agree with him. If he's not nodding somewhere in Illinois, we're not going to get anywhere, and we've been down that road before. Senator, I want to move to one of President Trump's 101 tweets in the last couple of days, and one of them said, in his interview with the New York Times, which he gave without any aides around in an impromptu fashion at the grill, at his grill in Florida, he said, I think Robert Mueller will do a fair job, an honest job. He's confident he'll do a good job on this investigation. From a legal perspective and with your legal background, I know that makes you happy because to criticize Robert Mueller is not a good thing to do, necessarily legally. But do you believe that he's pursuing this thing in an honest fashion from what you know, not what you hope, but what you know?
Yeah, I believe he is. I believe he's the right guy to have been chosen. He's going to give an analysis of what happened in a fair-minded way. But he's not looking at the dossier. That's not part of his charter. And I've spent some time in the last couple of days, after a lot of fighting with the Department of Justice, to get the background on the dossier. And here's what I can tell your viewers. I'm very disturbed about what the Department of Justice did with this dossier, and we need a special counsel to look into that because that's not in Mueller's charter. And what I saw and what I've gathered in the last couple of days bothers me a lot, and I'd like somebody outside DOJ to look into how this dossier was handled and what they did with it.
Wait a second. So you found out something you did not know, and you were already disturbed by it. And is it about what's in the contents of it, or how it was used for this investigation and unmasking possible Trump officials?
I've been a lawyer most of my life, a prosecutor and a defense attorney. And the one thing I can say, every prosecutor has a duty to the court to disclose things that are relevant to the request. So anytime a document is used to go to court for legal reasons, I think the Department of Justice owes it to the court to be up and up about exactly what this document is about, who paid for it, who's involved, what their motives might be. And I can just say this, after having looked at the history of the dossier and how it was used by the Department of Justice, I'm really very concerned, and this cannot be the new normal.
Wow. And Senator, I'm over time, but name the company in South Carolina that's responding to the tax reform and how.
Neuropron is a pharmaceutical company. They gave a 5% wage increase to all their employees specifically because of the tax cut. The average person makes $70,000 a year. 5% pay raise is real money. When you look at the tax cut plus the pay raise plus the increase in the 401k plan, this has been a very good presidency for people who are working out there. President Trump's tax cut is going to help working people. His policies have generated a lot of economic growth in 401k plans, and employers are sharing the profits of the tax cut with their employees, which makes me very happy.
Senator, thanks so much. Senator Lindsey Graham, have a great new year. I'll talk to you early and often in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you.
And he comes to us from Clemson, a team that couldn't beat Syracuse, but might just be the national champions. Meanwhile, according to BuzzFeed, America is being utterly ruined by white people. You heard that right. As a white guy, I'm curious to find out how we're doing it. BuzzFeed has found the problem with America. You ready? According to them, it's white people. Yes, that might be you. A year-end article on the website lists what it says are 37 things white people need to stop ruining in 2018. Among the listed, the Oscars, the United States of America, that's a general term, mac and cheese, I guess how we ruin that, I'm not sure, sneakers, Korean pop music, and protests. Joe Concha writes for media for The Hill and is also white. Joe, so you're a bit responsible here. You're not listed in the 37. Where do they get off coming off the list like this?
I think I'm only half white.
Well, I'm not sure.
I had some relatives that came by way of Cuba.
So at least 16 of these things you're responsible for then. So what are they getting at?
They're getting at that white people are bad for this country. Because one of them was that white people voted for Donald Trump at a 58% clip as opposed to Hillary Clinton at 37. He's in office there for white people caused this. But let's play a game, okay?
Okay.
Let's swap out white people ruining America 37 ways and put in black or Latino or any minority group. And you tell me how BuzzFeed, the editor, wouldn't be fired right now and how every advertiser on BuzzFeed wouldn't be boycotted.
Oh, yeah, believe me. After we saw some of the backlash when the writers on Vanity Fair came forward and just had some sarcastic things to say about Hillary Clinton's terrible behavior over the last year, you saw, and they apologized. You can only imagine. But will they face any backlash from a list like this?
You would think, but no, that hasn't been happening. And they've done lists like this before. There is precedent. One story they wrote was white people stay colonizing. And then white people are a plague to the planet was another one. So this appears to be a theme at the BuzzFeed. But I got to tell you, your floor director was walking me out here, and he said, you know what, because of that story, I stopped following BuzzFeed. I'm not going to read it anymore. You could only cross this line so many times.
All right. So lastly, do you think there's a chance that they're just having fun? They're just like throwing it out there to get us talking about it? Dare I say buzz? Or do you think there's an agenda?
I think they're desperate because I look at the numbers and they missed their revenue targets, according to the Wall Street Journal, by 50 to 70 million. They were supposed to have an IPO in 2018. Most analysts now say that isn't going to happen. So what do? You try to stir the pot even more and more. And when you do that, you dig the hole deeper and deeper.
When you bring a guy like Joe Concha in on a Friday, you got to come up with at least 2 topics, and we think we came up with one. CNN has spent most of this past week breathlessly reporting every detail about a white truck they believe President Trump sent to keep the media from watching him golf at Mar-a-Lago.
The president also got back on the golf course, but not that we can prove it because a giant white box truck blocks reporters.
What's up with the white truck blocking his golf swing?
This is a White House that seems particularly sensitive, for whatever reason, about images of President Trump on the golf course.
This truck showed up out of nowhere, and we don't know where it came from.
Now back to that mysterious truck blocking the president's golf swing from the cameras.
One of the advantages of having your own golf course is you could also get a guy to get in a truck to block that golf course from the road. What was the obsession there? I mean, how could they focus like? Not only are his tweets programming the entire network, but so are his non-actions.
We ever think about what was in the box truck? Could there have been the ice cream that brings 2 scoops of ice cream? Remember that was a CNN report that Trump has 2 instead of 1? Or maybe how many Diet Cokes he's having. It's delivering Diet Cokes. So maybe that should be the investigation. Look, CNN is not the network that it once was under the Aaron Browns and the Bernard Shaws. What's a big story this year, Brian, that almost no one's talking about? The ISIS caliphate being decimated in Iraq and Syria. They've lost 98% of their territory. They once had 45,000 fighters 2 years ago. They have less than 1,000 now. If there was ever a story that was in CNN's wheelhouse, given what they've done in the past in terms of their Middle East reporting, this is it, the ISIS story. And I don't see too much coverage on that, and I see crap, and this is crap, these types of focus right now from a once proud network that shouldn't be covering this sort of stuff. It's ridiculous.
But, Joe, they do have an agenda. They are obsessed with destroying him. It's coming from the upper echelons of CNN, no matter who owns them. And they've gotten some stories wrong because of that. Anthony Scaramucci, for one, links to the Russian government. They had to apologize for that.
Apologize, and they fired 3 reporters that were on that they basically just had hired. One actually won a Pulitzer. Gone. And then, of course, a couple of weeks ago, that WikiLeaks story that they had. They said that Donald Trump Jr. and the Trump campaign had information 10 days before everybody else. It turned out it was already in the public domain, and that's because they relied on unnamed sources that also duped CBS and NBC. They should reveal who that source was, because that source was purposely putting out false information, whoever that may have been, a political operative or even a lawmaker. And the Washington Post did something right there, Brian. They asked for the document, actual evidence, to see if Donald Trump Jr. got that or not. It took 2 minutes for them to get it. CNN went to air with it. So look, I don't want to stomp on CNN and say, like, this is a bad network and everybody's bad there. I think Jake Tapper does some good stuff. They have good reporters, great producers.
Alison Camerata is my female idol.
We just saw Dave Briggs, right, on there as well, who's been on Fox and Friends. They have some good people there. But when they keep doing stories like this, it destroys the credibility of a very once proud network. Get back to the guys you used to be. Focus on news and stop focusing so much on taking down a president.
Last thing, prediction. In 2018, will there be less anti-Trump and more balance on the two? Knock him down when they think he's wrong, but also note the stock market, the economy, the passage of the tax reform. See more of a balance?
The toothpaste is already out of the tube. You know what they say about putting toothpaste back in the tube, or you can't unring a bell. We're already down that path. CNN's made a business decision to go negative on Donald Trump. The problem is they lost audience in prime time from the previous year. Think about it, 2017, a chaotic, great year for news in terms of consumers bringing it in, and they actually lost audience. That's very hard to do.
Joe Concha, it's very nice of you to come in on this beautiful Friday.
It's gorgeous out, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Gonna go swimming.
Yeah, you definitely should wear a coat, okay? And don't lick a pole. Meanwhile, we have an update on the Vegas mass shooting investigation. That story's next. Plus, we're going to discuss how Vegas police plan to keep New Year's revelers safe 3 months after the deadliest shooting in American history. Don't go anywhere. Believe it or not, it's been nearly 3 months since the Las Vegas mass shooting, the deadliest in American history. But victims and their families, and maybe you, are still looking for answers. Meanwhile, Las Vegas police are ramping up security in an effort to block any mass violence during New Year's Eve celebrations. You got about 330,000 people expected to visit Vegas just to celebrate the new year. Kathleen Lombardo is an attorney representing Vegas shooting victims, the 58 that lost their lives and many more that were injured in some way, shape, or form. So, Catherine, thanks so much for joining us. As we look at the shooting, I'm mystified, and I know Tucker Carlson in particular has been following this. How little we still know about the shooter, his motivation, what his plan was, who killed him, why we know so little about the initial security guard that got in. Do you know more than we do?
Well, I certainly hope so, because I've been conducting the investigation for almost 3 months now, and on Monday is the 3-month anniversary. Recently, the FBI made a statement and said that they are not going to be releasing any of the reports until October 1st of 2018. That's an entire year, and we all think that that's entirely too long. Enough is enough. The Las Vegas Metro Police also hasn't released anything. I've been able to get a few items, and I also have a lot of investigators out there and some ears on the ground, so I do have more information, I think, than most, which I share with my clients because my clients just want answers. But one of the things that they are standing behind, the authorities, and I'm sure they're doing a fantastic job. They have a lot of information to sort through. They have 22,000 hours of video that they collected, which I'm very happy to hear because I knew there was video. They haven't released it to us, but I knew there was video, so I can't wait to see it. They've also sent out a dozen search warrants and executed those search warrants. But we think enough is enough. It's been long enough. They are standing behind their defense of keeping the information from us, saying that it is part of an ongoing criminal investigation. However, they're also saying that there was only one shooter, that shooter is dead because he killed himself, and so therefore, who are they investigating? What criminal investigation? The public has a right to know. And so the press has filed a few lawsuits to unseal the search warrants and to get the public records and the 911 calls and the video, saying that the public's interest outweighs their desire to keep things hidden for now.
12 federal search warrants out there, 500 federal grand jury subpoenas. They have 1,500 leads to follow and 500 worldwide. Now, if this guy, who was a very wealthy guy, which is relatively unique, who was able to take this room up for a week, which is fascinating, he was able to pull up this arsenal, enough for a small army, and no one's ever to notice. So they have all the surveillance video to go through. What I'm wondering is, are they convinced that there's no conspiracy here? Number one, can it happen again? Number two, where's his linkage? We also know if this was a terrorist attack, they like going back to the same location. And I go look at this number, 500 worldwide leads. Why would a guy who lives in Las Vegas, traveled a few times on cruises, a few times to the Philippines, why would he have worldwide leads coming around the world?
Well, it could be somehow related to his dealings. You know, his girlfriend is from the Philippines, and he gave her $100,000 and sent her back to the Philippines just days before the shooting. And I think that she was interviewed immediately thereafter. They brought her back. They picked her up at the airport, and the FBI did interview her. I'm hoping to see that report sometime soon to see what she knew and how she was involved. And as far as the manpower that they've put to this investigation, it's phenomenal. This is unprecedented.
Right, but they seem to be getting at each other. I know, but why, if it's just one guy and it's just that simple, and it's just one guy with a lot of money and a lot of guns, that makes me think that it's a lot bigger than that, and they don't know how to tell us yet because they don't have all the answers. And that's something I think we need to know. Catherine Lombardo, I'm out of time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
We're thinking of all your victims and the families and all your clients on this New Year's. As an Arctic blast grips much of the country, President Trump is heating up the debate over global warming. Yes, we're having that one again. Is it real? We'll find out the latest next. All right, most of America is having a very chilly end to the year, especially us in the East. And to President Trump, that offers a great chance to talk about global warming or lack thereof. Last night, the president tweeted this. In the East, it could be the coldest New Year's Eve on record. Perhaps we could use a little bit of that good old global warming that our country, but not other countries, we're going to pay trillions of dollars to protect us against. Bundle up! Exclamation point, close quotes. The president's remarks are sure to upset Al Gore, who has been warning us for more than a decade that the polar ice caps will be gone any day now.
The entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.
Unfortunately and regrettably, a lot of serious damage has been done. Greenland, for example, is losing 1 cubic kilometer of ice every single day. I went down to Miami and saw fish from the ocean swimming in the streets on a sunny day.
Right, and then kids were fishing to catch those fish. Craig Wrightstone is the author of this book called Inconvenient Facts, and he goes on looks at all of Al Gore's statements and brings his form of science to him. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you joining us, Greg.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed Donald Trump's tweet there.
So was he wrong? Because he's getting ripped by everyone. Elizabeth Warren just says, I'm going to say something really crazy. I believe in science. Climate change is real. And we have a moral obligation to protect this earth from our children and grandchildren. And a lot of people mocking the president. You're not. Why?
Well, I spent the day on some climate alarmist blogosphere and websites, and when they weren't deriding him for being a climate change denier or a science denier, they were deriding him because he couldn't tell the difference between weather and climate. And apparently weather is whenever the temperatures don't agree with what they have to say, and climate is when it does. You know, if it was 75 degrees on Times Square New Year's Eve, it'd be a front page story confirming climate change in the New York Times.
So, Gregory, you do not believe that a man is destroying the earth?
I do not. Actually, there's a lot of evidence that increasing CO2 and rising temperatures are having a significantly beneficial aspect to the Earth and the human condition. Just things like heat waves and forest fires are actually been in long-term decline, which is something your listeners probably have never heard. And something really needs to get out there. Well, they don't want to have these inconvenient facts out there.
And your book is all about taking Al Gore's principles and his very popular documentary, his sequel wasn't, and bringing your version of science to it. I'm going to throw this at you. The rate at which oceans are heating up has nearly doubled since 1992, and that heat is reaching even deeper waters, according to a new study. Do you believe that?
I do not. There is evidence that the oceans have heated up a little bit, but not anywhere near the rate that's claimed, and nowhere near the predictions. A lot of the climate apocalypse events that are predicted are actually based on extremely flawed climate models that have failed time and time again.
Do you believe that the warming trend has accelerated as we have increased our use of fossil fuels that began in the 19th century?
Well, we know that the warming trend that we're in right now, it actually started, we know the year. It was 1695. That was in the middle of the Little Ice Age, the depths of the horrendous Little Ice Age. In the next 40 years, the rate of warming is 4 times what we've seen in the 20th century. And for the next, from 1695 to 1850, we had more warming than we've had since. So if we look at the warming we've seen in the 20th century, it's very similar to other warming trends we've seen since the end of the last ice age. It's neither unusual nor unprecedented.
What's your background that leads you to a science that contradicts so many other scientists that the left goes to say we have to act and act now?
Yeah, I'm a geologist. I've spent 35 years researching various aspects of